Wednesday.
Good morning to you. It is Wednesday the 21st of August. This is Kay Adams with you till 12 on BBC Radio Scotland. It wasn't successful enough, says the Scottish Government, of their year-long pilot scheme to scrap peak rail fares. So as of September, some train tickets will more or less double. Unions say they didn't give it long enough.
Frankly, this just makes a mockery of the Scottish Government's climate ambitions. It's a bad decision for workers. It's going to cost over double. It's going to cost over £31 a day for people to travel between Glasgow and Edinburgh. It's simply unaffordable for the majority of people.
Yeah, that's Linda Somerville from the STUC. What do you think? Is it the right move to bring back peak rail fares? If it affects you, get in touch. 08085 92 95 00. And if you're one of those people who is not encouraged to step onto the rail network, tell us why. Also coming up this morning, onto the rail network, tell us why. Also coming up this morning,
I'm going to have a baby sister.
do we need to talk about gender disappointment? We have another humdrum conundrum for you.
Was I wrong for not telling my fiancé I went on a date with his brother before we dated?
Ooh, Cara Mackenzie will be sharing her thoughts on that one, but the verdict, as ever, lies with you. Do text us on 80295. Our consumer surgery is open for business. 1, 2, 3...
Wait. What's the first line again?
Help.
Oh, yeah.
1, 2...
Help!
No, wait.
Sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I need somebody. Help. Not just anybody. Help. You know I need someone.
Consumer rights expert Martin James is here to help if you are struggling with refunds or returns. If you've paid good money and you've got a bad deal, give him a call. Or you can text 80295. Comedian Bill Bailey brings us a workout you can do from your sofa. Yay!
And live from BBC Pacific Quay.
Across the United Kingdom and the world.
This is what they want.
This
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
His big ambition is to get people out of their cars and onto public transport. It's a major part of achieving climate change targets. The thinking behind this pilot scheme to ditch peak rail fares was that it would hopefully create an uplift in passenger numbers. The target was 10% plus, and therefore be self-funding. But a year on, announcing the return of peak fares, Transport Secretary Fiona Hislop explained to Good Morning Scotland why it hadn't worked out that way.
Now, if we're using public funding and public subsidy to cut prices, we need to demonstrate that it's having the impact that the pilot was meant to achieve, which was to try and shift more people to rail, to choose to use rail, not their car. Now, that hasn't shown evidence to the level that would justify that level of investment.
Well, the upshot is that peak fares will return from the end of September. So just a little sample here of some of the increases. Glasgow to Edinburgh has been mentioned. Will go from £16.20 return to £31.40. Aberdeen to Dundee from £38.30 to £49. Tweedbank to Edinburgh from £14.50 up to £21.70, and Inverurie to Aberdeen from £9.70 as it currently is to £12.10. So just a sample there of the increases. If you are affected, do get in touch and tell us how you feel about it. Will it change how and when you travel? Give us a call 08085 92 95 00. You can leave a voice note also on that number or a WhatsApp message, and you can text us on 80295. Are you disappointed by this decision, or does it make sense to you that actually if you're going to use public funds, I guess taxpayers' money, to fund what always was a pilot scheme and it's not giving the returns that it was hoped, then you have to withdraw it? Does that make sense to you? Scrapping peak fares didn't bring as many new passengers as hoped onto the trains. That's what Fiona Hislop said. Why not? Is it all about the price? I mean, if you're a regular rail traveller, tell us what your experience on the train is. And we've got quite a few texts in here. It's obviously a subject that really concerns people. And this one here saying, I think there are a couple of things that Fiona Hislop needs to look at as to why people are not using the trains. Firstly, we've had limited service due to industrial action over the past few weeks. The level of reliability of the train service is not the best. Also, many places not covered by a good rail service. We're in Lanark. We live halfway between Edinburgh and Glasgow, and I've been asking for many years for service to be reintroduced between Lanark and Edinburgh because the benefits to the economy would be significant, and yet we have had no direct link between Edinburgh and Lanark. So maybe not all about the prices. Again, Janice has emailed, well, she's emailed, k@bbc.co.uk. The public hasn't taken to the trains because of several things, says Janice. One, this ridiculous issue of not enough drivers because drivers are not working off days and overtime has meant an unreliable schedule. The other, perhaps more long-standing issue is the network is not connected up. Many areas of Scotland may have a train line, but once you get to the end of the line, there are no buses connected for onward journeys. Janice says, I stay in Airdrie. I can get trains from Glasgow to Airdrie, but there are no bus services or regular ones, they end at 5:30, to the multiple outlying villages where many people stay. So the option, a bus from Glasgow to Airdrie, which goes through the villages as well. So maybe this just isn't about price. Let's hear what you have to say. If you're not a regular rail traveller, why not? What options are you choosing instead, or are you forced to choose? Give us a call. The Scottish Government has made this decision to bring back peak rail fares after a year-long pilot scheme where they had been scrapped. They had hoped that it would bring more people onto the rail network. It has had limited success, they've said. I think the numbers are up by about 6.8%, but it hasn't reached the threshold that they would have needed to make it self-funding and therefore to continue. And so they have made the choice, the tough choice, to pull it. Was that the right move? 08085 92 95 00. But I mean, I guess really we're talking about your experience of the rail network in Scotland. That's what it comes down to. Though we have also the question of climate change. You know, getting people off the roads or out of their cars and onto public transport is a key part of achieving climate change ambitions and targets. So what does this decision do to that? Clark's on the line. Good morning, Clark.
Good morning.
Good morning. Are you a regular rail traveller, Clark?
Not a regular rail traveller, but we do use the train periodically at weekends from Fife over to Edinburgh.
Right, OK. So you'll be travelling off-peak anyway, yeah?
Yes.
Right, OK. So it's not a price thing for you then?
No, nothing to do with the price at all.
OK, all right. So what's your experience of the rail network?
They just think there's a lack of carriages to take people safely and comfortably over from, well, certainly from Fife. The instance I'll give you is a couple of weeks ago, as 4 of us went from 2 got on at Cooper and 2 at Ladybank, and there was only 2 carriages for the complete journey when the festival was on, which doesn't make sense, and there was absolutely no seating availability at all. We had to stand all the way. People still trying to get on the train at Markinch and Kirkcaldy. The conductress had no chance of getting up the aisle to collect fares from stations where the ticket office is not open.
Right.
And it was just totally uncomfortable. The windows wouldn't open. There was no air conditioning in it. And it was just unbelievable how they could only put 2 carriages on when the festival's on.
Is it the quality then that you feel is just not up to scratch, Clark?
It's just the lack of organisation of carriages at peak times when there's events on in the city. Example, we were on our way home. We managed to get on early enough to get a seat. Mm-hmm. Our couple, the 2 that were with, they had to stand all the way home. They got an earlier train. Mm-hmm. But we were sitting in Inverkeithing and a train passed us in the opposite direction with 8 carriages on it, completely empty. Mm-hmm. So there's certainly no lack of carriages to put on. I don't know whether they're working the rule or whatever, but that was a prime example of where they should have had at least 8 carriages on.
Mm-hmm. Clark, we've got Alistair Dalton with us, who's a Scotsman's transport correspondent. Good morning, Alistair.
Good morning, Kay.
Good morning. I mean, Clark, obviously that's his experience. We have got, coming in on text, other kind of similar experiences. In fact, Fiona Hislop herself said today on Good Morning Scotland that she is a regular traveller between Glasgow and Edinburgh and has had to stand on occasions, which suggests that the trains are busy, and yet this scheme is being pulled because they're not busy enough.
Yes, and I think, as you mentioned before, the industrial dispute over pay at ScotRail over the last more than a month has significantly reduced the number of trains, including on the main Edinburgh to Glasgow line, just as its busiest time of the year during the festival, and there's been unplanned cancellations on top of that. So rather than back in the day there was a service every 15 minutes, there's only sometimes it's down to hourly. I've been on trains like that when it's standing room only. But I think the key thing is it's a major change for people who are creatures of habit in their regular travel. If they've got a car sitting outside their house and the convenience and they're just used to that travel, to make that change to sort of step out into the blue and find out about how do you go by train. It's a big change, and being able to do it in this relatively short time has showed that there hasn't been the shift that the government was looking for.
Right. I mean, the union, Linda Somerville from STUC, that was her view, that a year just isn't enough to bring about the level of behavioural change that would be required. But I mean, I guess from what Fiona Hislop was saying, they set a target of 10% of an increase. It hasn't happened, and because of the pressure on public purse, they've no option but to pull it.
Yeah, well, there's been a few other factors which have hampered this pilot. At the beginning, it started last October. There was a series of significant winter storms which reduced travel. Another thing is that although there's been a significant reduction for those lucky enough travelling between Edinburgh and Glasgow of almost half price at peak hours, some areas of the country don't have peak fares, so haven't benefited at all. So there is that diversity of how much you can save.
So in terms of encouraging more people onto the rail network, and I guess that is the bigger conversation here, it's about more than price then, yeah?
It's to do with whether you have a railway near you, how it fits in with your lifestyle, whether the service is the right level of frequency, and as I mentioned, there's an indefinite reduced timetable during the current pay dispute, and there's even the possibility of strikes because at least one union has voted in favour of strikes. So is all of those things. So a much greater move is needed to persuade people out of their cars. And as you mentioned, that climate change, reducing emissions, is a major goal of the Scottish Government. They have an incredibly ambitious target of reducing car use by 20% by 2030, and we still haven't sort of seen the real major measures towards that.
So there are a host of factors here that are crucial to getting people to make major changes in their behaviour. You say, Alice, it's convenience. With cars, we have become very accustomed to being able to jump in our car, if indeed we have one, not everyone has, but jump in your car and then go where you want to go, whenever you want to go. So it is a big deal to get people to break that habit. And as Alistair has outlined, there's a number of factors that feed into that. Having said that, we now face this situation whereby a year where certain peak fares have been scrapped are now being reintroduced, so it isn't going to help, I guess. But tell us how you feel about it. Are you going to be directly affected? Is it going to change your travel patterns? 08085 92 95 00. Are you disappointed by this decision, or do you accept it, that really the Scottish Government had no option, as I say, given the pressures on the public purse? And if you're not a rail traveller or a public transport user, what is it going to take to get you to get onto either the rail network or indeed the bus network as well? You can text us on 80295. Rosalind Main is a commuter for work. Good morning, Rosalind.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. So, looking specifically at this decision to bring back peak fares, this will affect you, Rosalind, yeah?
Definitely, it definitely will, because I travel between Edinburgh and Glasgow a lot for work, and I feel like the prices are already quite expensive, even with, because I have a rail card, and I mean the rail card, it won't last forever. So when I'm looking at the peak, the prices that it's going to be going at, I just see it as such an expensive jump, especially when you look at places like if you go to Europe, other places for the same level, because the express train is about 46 minutes. And if you look at going other places abroad, it can be about, €3 to €6 for that same length of time. But to know that it's going up to about £30 here is just like, it's something that I'll have to look at when it comes to budgeting, when it looks at how often can I travel between. I don't drive, so I rely on public transport. And I think I obviously try and make the right steps to be more sort of like green conscious as well in my travels. But I think when it comes to looking at just how expensive they're getting, there's the bus as well, but the buses are going up in price. It's just one of those things where, when will things stop getting so expensive?
Well, yeah, and the other option that people now have, or more than they used to, and it might not apply to you, Rosalind, but for many people, working from home is now an option that perhaps wasn't there, pre-COVID time. So some people might be deciding, well, do you know what, I'm just not going to travel.
Yeah, that's definitely an option as well. When you look at ways that you can commute, there might be ways where you just cut out travel altogether and work from home. But with my job, I work in the arts, so I have to be in the gallery. I have to make sure that I make the journey over. And when it comes to peak travel, like previous caller said, it does get really busy. There are, it's the sort of like, there's a lot of cancellations. There's the sort of, there can be levels of, if you get the specific train, it might not arrive on time. So there's the level of how expensive it is, but also how reliable will it be to get me there if I'm going to part with this much kind of thing.
I mean, this pilot scheme has been in place for a year. Presumably you've been travelling back and forth for longer than that. Over this past year, have you appreciated the reduction in price?
Definitely. I would say it's something that has helped me a lot when it comes to budgeting, when it comes to how often I can travel through, especially with the anytime return within a month fare. That's cheaper as well. So it's something that I can actually factor in, being like, I can actually stay through in Glasgow for a few days, or I can stay through in Edinburgh for a few days, and it not be super expensive. But when you do notice that prices go up ever so slightly, you're like, I had it in my head that it was this price, but not anymore. It's sort of keeping a tab of the change that keeps coming. And after seeing the news and seeing friends also share the news as well online, you just go like, okay, I have to factor in that it's actually now going to cost me like £10 more, or, and it's something that you could use, that, everybody could use that bit of extra money now in this climate. And I think the way things are getting more expensive is obviously going to affect a lot of people.
Yeah. Did you accept the Scottish Government's reasoning for making this decision?
I can see where they're coming from, but it's also something where I feel like with the whole targets on being a greener country, I think it's really important to factor in accessibility as well. So I think affordable transport is obviously still something that needs to be a priority, especially in a country that is so connected with railways.
Well, Rosalind, listen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Rosalind Main there, who is a regular commuter between Glasgow and Edinburgh. It will very much make a difference to her. Let us know if this, which will affect, of course, Scotland-wide, if it makes a difference to you. 08085 92 95 00. Ian is in Larbert, I think. Good morning, Ian.
Morning, Kate. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. So what
3 weeks for work. I used to take the train, but now I take the car, just because the trains are getting so expensive. I have to get an open return if I'm getting the train, because I don't come back on the same day. You're talking over £80 now, whereas I can get up and down in the car for less than 20. So, there's just no incentive for me really to take the train.
That is the simple maths, isn't it? So it would cost you £80 to get a train ticket and £20 in your car.
Exactly. And everyone wants to do the bit for the environment, Kay, but there needs to be some kind of incentive at the end of the day to encourage people to take the trains. And with them being so expensive, it's just putting a lot of people off.
I mean, beyond the price, are there other factors that matter to you? And people say, well, it's convenient. Remember the old thing, let the train take the strain. You could argue, well, it's more pleasant in the train. I mean, it's going to have to be very pleasant to make up for 60 quid, I have to say. But let's carry on down this path. You can sit there, you can have a comfortable seat, you can have your laptop, you can have Wi-Fi. No.
Okay, it's even just hard to get a seat now, Kay. I mean, the trains are so busy as well. You know, it's quite often you're standing room only. So it's, yeah, for me personally, the car's a lot more comfortable, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So, if the Scottish Government said to you, right, Ian, what does it take to get you to be a regular train user or public transport user, what would you say?
It would need to be a big drop in the price ticket, I think, Kay. I think that's the only thing that's going to get people back on the trains on a regular basis, you know.
It's interesting, actually, because I listened to Linda Somerville from the STUC earlier this morning, and what she said was that arguably, despite the fact that they scrapped the peak rail fares and that gave people a bit of respite over the last year, there is an argument to say that the prices had to drop even further than that in order to effect this behavioural change and to make people think, do you know what, that sounds like a really good deal, I'm going to get the train, and so to get that uplift in passenger numbers. But then what we're hearing this morning is people saying, well, I'm getting on a train and I can't get a seat because it's too busy, or it's unreliable, or etc. So I suppose if you encourage all these people by reducing the price to use the trains, and then the service isn't fit for purpose, then you've got double trouble, haven't you?
Yeah, I think that's basically. I think reducing the fares is a start, but obviously putting on additional carriages so you can actually get a seat on the train is a big thing as well. You have to have the comfort as well, don't you? As well as a reasonable price. So yeah, I think definitely getting rid of the peak fares was a good starting point. But yeah, I think it's just the beginning, Kate, to be honest.
Ian, thanks very much. Alistair Dalton from the Scotsman, just on that point, Fiona Hislop was saying that the target was an increase of 10% in terms of passenger use, and they only hit 6.8%. With some of the stories that we're hearing this morning, had they hit 10%, would the service and the network been able to cope?
I think so, because a relatively small number of people travelling by train compared to even bus or car, that's spread across the country. I think several of your callers made an important point about the cost of rail travel, and one of Scotland's leading transport academics, Professor Ian Doherty of Stirling University, made a good point in a piece in the Scotsman today about a much more radical look is needed at the relative cost of travelling by car as opposed to travelling by bus or train, because while bus and train fares have gone up sometimes ahead of inflation, the relative cost of motoring has held down, and some of your callers will talk about perhaps just the cost of fuel, but that's come down over the last recent times too. The Scottish Government did look at the fares issue, fares review, but I think the results earlier this year were somewhat underwhelming, and there was no big idea as how to address that question of the disparity.
Well, news that no one would want to hear. Perhaps the other way to look at this is, rather than reducing the price of public transport, increasing the price of using your car.
Yeah, which, as I think has been mentioned, is in many aspects reserved to the UK government in terms of fuel duty, other motoring costs. But perhaps with the change of government at Westminster and apparently better cooperation with the Scottish Government, then they might be looking at that together, particularly as it was a former Labour government that looked at road pricing, having to pay as you drive back in the Tony Blair years.
Well, there you go. That's a nice thing to wake up to on Wednesday, isn't it? But, if we are going to achieve these climate change targets, and ultimately that is the big ambition here, we are going to have to get people out of their cars and using alternative modes of transport, unless, of course, people just stay at home and home working becomes the thing and we don't have the level of travel that we currently have. All sorts of ramifications of that, of course. Alistair, thanks for now. 08085 92 95 00. Just want your initial reaction to this decision by the Scottish Government to bring back peak rail fares. They've had this pilot scheme that's been running for a year. It was intended, or it was hoped, that it would bring more people onto the rail network and ultimately become self-funding. Unfortunately, the passenger numbers didn't increase by the necessary amounts, and therefore it has been scrapped. So for people who are regular commuters, like Rosalind Main that we were speaking to there, it's going to make a heck of a difference. She's a regular going between Glasgow and Edinburgh at peak times. So what a ticket that you can now get for £16.20, and it's been available at that rate for the last year, will now go to £31.40. I know people get fed up, rightly so, of being obsessed with central Scotland, but this is Scotland-wide, of course. Aberdeen to Dundee was £38.30, will go up to £49. Elgin to Inverness was £15.70, will go up to £23.90. So if you are affected, do let us know. Get in touch and tell us how you feel about it. Are you annoyed about it? Do you think it's the wrong move, or do you accept that really the Scottish Government has no choice in this? And more broadly, what is it going to take to get people out of their cars and onto either the rail or the bus network? You can give us your experiences of that. 80295 is the text number, but best always to pick up the phone, 08085 92 95 00. You can also send a WhatsApp message or a voice note on that number.
Some people will do anything to take their favorite video games everywhere they go. But now Tiger gives you all the fun and excitement of your favorite arcade game in the palm of your hand. Games like Double Dragon, jump, kick, and fight your way through 4 missions to defeat the big boss and save Marion to win. Also coming soon from Tiger, Karnoff, Gauntlet, Jordan Bird, Simon's Quest, and more. Tiger LCD video games.
9:26, Kay Adams with you till 12 on BBC Radio Scotland. Coming up after 10 this morning.
These videos are all about helping you to keep moving at home and at a pace that suits you.
Yeah, that's comedian Bill Bailey. He'll be telling us how to get fit without leaving our sofa. Sounds good. And our consumer rights expert Martin James is back.
Strap yourself in as we're back
on BBC Radio Scotland.
So we're talking this morning about the Scottish Government's decision to bring back peak rail fares, but I mean really interesting texts coming in about all kind of aspects of our public transport offer. Alan saying, I live in Pullman, about 3 miles from the station. There's never any parking space at the station. My car's on the drive, so why would I give myself the hassle? Leslie's in Larbert, the reliability of the trains has definitely put people off rail travel. I've had to collect my husband twice from Falkirk High while his car is in Larbert. I think the scheme should last longer. Connectivity of the train times is vital. In the north, we can wait 2 hours for connections south at Aberdeen if we arrive in on the Inverness line, where trains literally are timetabled to miss by minutes. Someone else saying, I'm in Dundee, I love to visit Edinburgh, but it's half the price to drive to Ingliston and take the tram the rest of the journey than the train. The electric bus service provides a much more reliable service, guaranteed seat, aircon, text updates, much cheaper too as a train alternative. Would love to use the train, but there is no benefit to choosing it. I mean, again, that text saying it's half the price to drive than it is to take the train. Just spoke to Ian, who's in Larbert, has to go up to Aberdeen on a regular basis. Costs him 80 quid return on the train, and it costs him £20 in his car. I mean, regardless of how you feel about the need to meet climate change targets, that is a hefty difference on a one-off trip, isn't it? Keep your texts and your calls coming in, 80295 and 08085 92 95 00. Shona Craven is with us, columnist for the National. Good morning, Shona.
Morning.
It kind of feels as if the Scottish Government have waved the white flag on the rail network.
Well, I mean, I think it's important to note that this was a pilot. A lot of the headlines have sort of said pilot scrapped. Well, a pilot is always going to come to an end, and it was extended twice. It was originally 6 months, and then it was extended to 9, extended to 12, and that partly, I think, reflected the fact that there were factors that impacted on take-up, including these disputes, including unreliability being increased as a result. So I think the Scottish Government really wanted this to work, and I think at the time of the last extension, we heard that message from Fiona Hislop, which was...
But what we're not getting, Shona, is, look, this hasn't worked, but we're going to do this instead.
Well, no, we have, because there have been other changes. I think for 12 months there's going to be discounts on season tickets. There's a change to the flexi ticket, which will be permanent. Now, obviously, for a lot of people, though, that won't
In
apply
terms
to
of
them.
reliability, in terms of the quality of the service, I mean, all these things that we're getting through in the text about the lack of connectivity of the public transport network, about the quality, about the reliability, about the fact that you're paying, a lot of money to stand for the duration of your journey. All of those factors are also key in people's decision making, aren't they?
They definitely are, and there are definitely lots of other questions that can be asked about this. But I think cost is probably the main factor, putting a lot of people off, because you might not get a seat and that's not great, but you're not actually having to sit in traffic jams, sit in the car, completely waste that time when you're guaranteed to have to be the one driving, never mind anything else. But I think when we talk about cost, I do agree on one hand with the Greens saying this needed to be given more time. It takes time for people to change their behaviour, because when we're talking about car travel, what's interesting is that people just look at that fuel cost and they don't look at the cost of actually owning a car, and factors such as insurance, which I believe has gone up by about 25% in a year, which is huge.
But
And so
people
if you're
use their
talking
cars
about
for all sorts
long-term
of
change-
reasons, don't they? I mean, they would use it for commute, but they use it to go to the shops, to do the supermarket shop, which they would never use a train for and unlikely to use a bus for. They use it to take the kids to some kind of club at night when it's dark and it's rainy or whatever and come back. So there's a load of reasons that people would own a car beyond just
and
those
once you
journeys.
Have one, and once you have a car, then obviously the fuel cost is the one that makes a difference for an individual journey. But in the longer term, if we look at younger people, how many younger people can't really afford to buy a car and own a car to begin with? Is it going to be more car sharing that they do going forward? So, I agree. No one's going to ditch their car because of a 6-month or even 9-month pilot scheme. But you do have to test something out. And with the huge pressures on public finances, it is understandable. It's a scunner for the people who will have to pay so much more. It's eye-watering. But at the same time, you have to say to the critics of the Scottish Government who are saying this shouldn't have been ended, where would you find the money? What other budget would you take it from? Yes, we all want to see climate targets realised, but the punishing Westminster austerity does have impacts in Scotland, and you would have to say to those people, where are you getting the money from to subsidise this, when the aim, the worthy aim, was for it to be self-funding due to the increased numbers of people using the trains. It was given a really good chance to get to that 10%, but as you said, we're still more than 3% short of that. So it's not what anyone would want, but that is the reality.
Yeah. Well, Cat Stewart, do you agree with Shona Craven that really the Scottish Government had little option here?
I agree with Shona that it is difficult to see where the money would come from, but my understanding was that this pilot project was going to be ended actually in April, but was somewhat cynically extended for the general election period. And now, we have a Scottish Government declaring a public spending emergency. When I was writing about that last week, I was speaking to insiders at the Scottish Government who were saying that there were going to be shockwaves felt from that. And it's certainly one of them. But I think the problem is that we're getting the worst of both worlds. So we're having these high prices, but we also have really poor services. So, if you look at the service from Glasgow to Edinburgh, that's a main morning commuter route. It's the route between Scotland's two biggest cities, and there used to be a rush hour 15-minute service that was stopped at the pandemic. It's never been reintroduced. So I think it's understandable that people are saying, what are we paying for?
I mean, do you use the service, Katrina?
Well, luckily for me, this change comes in on September the 27th, and I live in Glasgow. I start my new job in Edinburgh on September the 30th, and I've worked out that to commute 3 days a week is going to cost me more than my mortgage.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I do have a small mortgage, but it's going to cost me just over £400 a month, which is a huge additional burden to take on.
Right. And if we were on the current sort of pricing, it would be roughly 200 because it's more or less going to double that one, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's not taking into account travel from my flat into Queen Street Station to get the train, but I cycle most of the time, so at least that saves some money there. And that's the point of this pilot was to get people out of their cars and back onto the trains. And it was perhaps a really bad time to be running the pilot project because there's been so much impact on the rail network. There hasn't been a sort of holistic look at other factors that affect people leaving the car behind and taking the train. And so I think, again, commuters just feel that this is really unfair. It's been a pilot project, but it's not really been carried out under perfect test conditions.
So will you make other decisions then about how you travel? Will you just sort of suck up this extra cost, or will you look at the bus? Will you try and work from home? What are you going to do?
I will just have to suck it up, I think. And I do wonder about what other people will do. Will this encourage more people to work from home? The people who have been enticed back into the office, will they return to home working? What sort of impact will that have on local economies? These are all sorts of factors to be taken in. For me personally, I will just have to suck it up. The bus is not particularly an option, so stuck with the train, I'm afraid.
We've got Rod in Aberdeen who says they didn't scrap the peak fares. The Scottish Government paid the difference. On that point, why should non-public transport users have their taxes go towards paying for others to get cheaper travel, or should cyclists or walkers, etc., get paid to cycle to work? If you don't use a service, I guess you don't want to think that you are subsidising it in any way. David in East Calder says multiple issues with the train in Scotland: no joined-up timetables, not enough parking at stations, too expensive, old rolling stock, unreliable timetable, getting a ticket can be tricky. The list goes on. On holiday in Italy a few years back, it was all a doddle on the train network. This clearly goes far beyond the price of the ticket, though the price of the ticket is always going to be a factor. But I suppose if you are going to pay top dollar, as they say, you want to know that the service that you're going to receive is going to be a top quality service. And certainly what we're getting from a lot of people here is that is not their experience. 0808 592 95 00. Tell us your experience of the rail network in Scotland. Geraldine's on the line. Good morning, Geraldine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a pensioner, and from what I've heard this morning, it kind of almost seemed that it was designed to fail in the long term. I asked my daughter and son quite recently if they knew about it. I presumed that they would have done, but they said neither of them did, and I was quite surprised by that. But the point I wanted to make, that as a pensioner with a bus pass, when they pull the fares, fare reduction, I will not tend to be able to go by train anymore. I'll be going by bus if I go. I like to go out, for the day to Stirling or to Edinburgh or something. My bus pass is free. I can get on the bus for free, but I do pay on the train, although it's subsidised. From Moss Park, which is my local station, through to Edinburgh, for instance, I think costs about £11.40, and I can go all day and come back whenever I want. But in the future, I'll have to cut it very short in order not to pay, a silly amount of money. So I will tend to take the bus, which means that the trains will lose my fare. And I'm sure a lot of pensioners are thinking the same. So they'll lose a lot of money to people who get free bus journeys but do pay on the train because of that.
Right. So it's definitely going to change your travelling habits then, Geraldine, yeah?
Yeah, but I don't like getting the bus because I always feel a little bit claustrophobic, and there's usually somebody vaping on the bus and the smell goes all the way through. It's very unpleasant. Well, I shouldn't really say that, but I do like the train because it's just a much better experience. You can look out at the train and you can see maybe there's a field of geese or with geese on landing on a field, or I've even seen buzzards and all sorts of things when you look out the window. It's a real joy. It's a treat to go on the train. But if you can't afford it, it's the one thing that I do that I really call makes my life worthwhile, really. But the bus is it had to be the bus, and you can't really enjoy the bus the same. You feel a bit stuck on a bus. But the trains are a lot more open. But anyway, yes.
Well, that was always the way that the train was kind of sold to us, wasn't it? That, you know, let the train, take the train, that it was a very pleasant way to travel. You could sit and you could look out the window and enjoy the scenery and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But if that isn't there, or you're not getting that on the bus, Geraldine, then, and it's too expensive and unreliable, then the whole kind of offer falls to bits. Shona Craven, just to come back to you, then where does this leave the Scottish Government in terms of trying to encourage people to leave their cars at home?
Well, I think there's loads of things that can still be done in that regard. And one thing I found quite interesting was at one point when John Swinney was trying to encourage people to take this up, obviously trying to get to that 10%, I think he actually specifically encouraged people who were just going on day trips to actually go at peak times. You know, I don't think it can be said that they didn't try. But at the same time, if it was me and I was just going on a day trip, I wouldn't want to go at peak time just for the sake of it being the same price as any other time, because it would be very busy. I'd be less likely to get.
Yeah, but I was thinking more bigger picture here, Shona. We are where we are, and they've had to pull this pilot because it didn't work to the level they wanted it to, and because there's a real pressure on the public purse. So we know that. But in terms of reaching these climate change targets and getting people generally out of their cars and onto forms of public transport, where does the Scottish Government go from here? What do they have in their bag of tricks?
Well, there's obviously a lot of different things being done. As I say, there's generational change as well. But
what's being done?
That we also don't know that the 6.8% of people who have started going by train, you could say it's obvious they won't continue because it was price that deterred them before, but that's not necessarily the case, and we don't know how many people may have permanently changed their habits as a result of this. But in terms of other measures, well, there are a whole raft of measures to try and encourage public transport. One thing that they should be doing and that they still haven't got to grips with is integration of bus and train. Obviously, people do have to get to the station in order to use the service, even if they are happy with the train. Single ticketing, that's something that campaigners have been pushing for a long time. I don't think there's no ideological opposition to that, but it's about integrating public and private services, which does present challenges, but a lot of people say, look at London, it can be done and it should be done. So that's something that should be looked at. But again, you have to consider the immediate cost. And people might say, oh, it's terrible, the Scottish Government has these targets. But there is a limit to what can be done, and it has to be the case that people are made aware of that and that funding constraints do have an impact. Yes, there's this issue of whether non-train users should subsidise train users, and some people may have ideological objections to that. But if the money isn't there, or the money is going to have to be taken from other budgets, including other climate initiatives, then it's easy to say that this should continue, but in terms of funding it is another matter. And changing people's attitudes it is a longer term thing. And I think, as I say, that will be something that changes over a much longer time than 12 months. But it can't be said that
and that's what
isn't trying.
Linda Somerville from the STUC said. In her view, they just didn't give it long enough. Also an argument that perhaps the prices didn't come down low enough to encourage people on. But we've got Anthony in Blackwood. Morning, Anthony. Good morning.
Thought that they didn't let it go on long enough, like you said, and also they didn't promote it well enough, maybe on the internet, the TV, the radio, just to get people involved. And there's a few other things, just interconnect the bus timetables. Mm-hmm. Maybe the same price should be set for everyone. And also maybe under 20s can be free, just to get them to use it. And the same goes for the buses, just so everyone uses it a wee bit better.
Well, there is free bus travel, isn't there, under the age of 22? Not on the train, but I'm pretty sure in saying that. Shona, am I right on that?
Yeah, under 22 is free bus travel.
Free bus travel.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, so that is available. Are you a regular train user, Anthony?
Just now and again. I'm a plumber, so you're limited to your van, really.
Right, okay. Interesting that you said they didn't promote it properly. I think it was Geraldine who said that her son and daughter-in-law, or the other way around, weren't aware of it. How aware were you, Anthony?
No, I wasn't aware of it at all. The just odd time when we go into town at the weekend, but or in the evening, but didn't know about it at all.
Right, OK. Thanks, Anthony. We've got Adrian Johnson from Just Stop Oil. Good morning, Adrian.
Hi, good morning to you. Thanks very much for having me on.
No, not at all. Well, you know, Shona's outlined all the reasons why, you know, in her opinion, this was the right decision at this particular point. Would you agree?
No, I think it sends completely the wrong message. I'd also like to say, I mean, Just Stop Oil isn't anti-driving or anti-flying, but we do have a demand of governments globally that they sign and agree to an international legally binding treaty to end the extraction and burning of all fossil fuels, that's oil, coal and gas, by 2030 to give us at least a chance of a livable future for all. So obviously that's going to involve huge transformational changes in the way that we travel around and...
Well, yeah, and the Scottish Government has been very ambitious in the targets that it has set itself. You know, absolutely accepts the fact that there is a climate emergency, as Nicola Sturgeon called it, fairly early doors. So, you know, they're on board in terms of, you know, wanting to reach these targets, wanting to get people out of their cars and onto alternative forms of transport. They tried this in the hope that it would be effective, but it just hasn't been.
Okay, let's try something different then, because I understand that they are literally they're going to miss their targets because it's impossible for them to reach them. But let's try something else. Let's try telling people just how serious and urgent the situation is. There's something that's part of the Paris Agreement, which is Article 12, which demands that governments around the world tell their citizens how serious and how urgent the situation is. And I think if we get that right, if we start to get that right, then people will naturally make decisions that are going to bring down emissions.
Well, you say that, Adrian, but let's just get back to the train. I think we had Ian in Larbert earlier on who actually said, I'm very aware of the environmental imperative here, but the difference between him making a trip between his home and Aberdeen, which he makes on a number of occasions a month, by car, it costs him £20. By train, it would cost him £80.
I just don't think people are getting it, because when you say that...
What do you mean they're not getting it?
But when you say that people understand the seriousness of the situation, so I have 2 grandchildren, right?
No, hang on, Adrian. Let's say he does 3 trips a month. The differential would be £180. That might be the difference between him paying his mortgage or not.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. But I would say to you again, when people understand that by 2030 people in the UK are likely going to be starving to death because of crop failure worldwide, then they start to make changes and they start to make demands of the government and the systems, and things start to happen.
OK, so what would someone in Ian's situation, what kind of changes would someone in Ian's position make? And I hope, if Ian's still listening, I hope you don't mind me using his example, Ian, but you just gave us the figures, which is good. What kind of changes would you want someone in that position to make?
So it needs to start with the government telling people how serious it is.
No, OK, so they've done that, and Ian understands, so what should he do? What should he change?
No, the government hasn't said, for example, that by 2030 it is likely that people are going to be starving to death in the UK. When they start saying that, when they start actually getting in line with the science and the urgency of it, then people take to the streets to demand our government give us, for example, free public transport or jobs in areas so that we don't have to commute to work, or, you know, just totally different ways of doing things.
Okay,
because
all right.
Otherwise we are heading for a disaster.
Okay, so serious structural change. Adrian, thank you very much indeed. 08085 92 95 00. Get in touch.
The afternoon show has been bringing you the best entertainment from the Edinburgh festivals.
Comedian Craig Hill, you're wearing a pink kilt.
Well, I just thought it's radio. Put on your best clothes. I'm doing a show talking about my thoughts and feelings. Mm-hmm. It wasn't for me.
There's comedy, theatre, books, music and more.
It's big country. Diana Vickers, how about that? You're trying to bring me down.
Join Nicola Meehan for all the highlights from the Edinburgh festivals.
Chief Cameron Mickelson.
It's quite simple. A BAM is sort of between a Raj and a roaster.
The afternoon show. Listen now on BBC Sounds.
You're about to see something incredible from Tyco.
Silver Streak Curve Huggers now defy gravity as they hang on through Tyco's new double loops. But that's not all. Turn out the lights. See the headlights go on. Watch the whole set glow in the dark for real night racing. And light up your youngster's face. Night Glow Double Loop Racing. From Tyco, of course.
It is 10 to 10. This is Kay Adams with you till 12 on BBC Radio Scotland. Coming up after the phone-in.
Introducing the Sit-On fitness apparatus, this year's #1 exercise machine. The complete home gym with movements almost everyone can do,
including people with long-term health conditions.
Yes, that's comedian Bill Bailey will be here to tell us about the Sit-On fitness apparatus, and of course that's an acronym for the sofa.
Thanks for waiting. We're back now.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Loads of texts coming in. When I turned 60 for over a year, decided not to replace my car, use only public transport. Lived in Dumfries and Galloway. Proved really difficult to connect with family, friends, appointments, and importantly, to be able to commute to well-paid work, which is simply not available in this region. Public transport is such poor quality, unreliable, dirty, mostly very cold, sometimes too hot, no mobile laptop device charging, and so expensive compared to Europe. Interesting, that comment about the ability to commute to well-paid work, which is simply not available in this region. I saw a text there which disappeared. I was reading it and then it disappeared. Oh, here it is. Why do people feel that they have the right to live 30 or 40 miles from their workplace and that the public purse will subsidise their travel? Has no one heard of the 20-minute neighbourhoods? And of course, that is, a vision that is expressed by many people, particularly, those people who are very concerned about environmental issues, as most people are now, that we all kind of live and work and socialise within a 20-minute neighbourhood. But there's the reality of somebody living in Dumfries and Galloway saying, well, there's no decent paid work close to where I am, and therefore I have no option but to travel. Though, we spoke to Adrian from Just Stop Oil, Adrian Johnson, and I'm sure he would argue that that is why we need real structural change. John is in here. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm quite intrigued by some of the mileages that the chap from Larbert who's going from Larbert to Aberdeen for £20. Or he must have an electric car, and it might well be it's a company car or something. But I live in Ayr. I travel regularly through to Edinburgh, and whenever I can, when the trains are running, I much prefer to take the train. It takes just about the same time. It costs £20. I was in Edinburgh yesterday for a festival show, and it was £19 to travel from there to Edinburgh return. It would have cost me probably £30 in my diesel average mileage car. And when you get to Edinburgh, of course, you've got all the hassle of
parking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I wouldn't even attempt it, frankly. But I do take my car occasionally when I have to, when the trains aren't running for whatever reason, and it costs me about £30 in my car. It's 45 miles per gallon or something.
I suppose it depends whether you're driving solo or not, John. Obviously, if you could take a family or whatever, and then you've got to get 4 tickets or 3 colleagues.
That's a completely different equation, and I do agree. But if it was left to me, it's just so nice to get on the train. You can listen to your radio on your mobile phone. You can read. You can just relax, and it's just so easy to get there. And like I say, when you get to Edinburgh, try parking in Edinburgh. It's going to cost you about £10 an hour. So I mean, it's just ludicrous. If it was left to me, I'd just make all public transport free, and that wouldn't work, would it? Nobody's going to vote for that.
Well, it has been tried in other cities across Europe, and I think it is in place in other cities across Europe. And arguably, that would be the game changer. I mean, let me bring in Shona Craven from The National again. I mean, is perhaps the issue with this pilot scheme, Shona, that it wasn't ambitious enough?
No, I don't think so. I think that the scheme was appropriate, and I take the point about people maybe not having heard of it, but obviously every time it was extended, it was also promoted. It was promoted at the opening of the Leavenmouth Railway. Again, that was part of the sort of day trips aspect. But I think the notion of nobody's going to vote for that, well, obviously your contributor from Just Stop Oil would vote for that. But again, you still have people saying, even if it was free, that in terms of the time that it takes to get places, that's another factor as well as the cost. There are people who would keep their cars even if all public transport, maybe not including taxis, obviously, but all public transport was free. It's not necessarily a wacky idea, but again, you have this fundamental sort of contradiction of somebody saying, what was it he said, that in 2030 people will be starving to death? Well, but at the same time suggesting someone should be taking a hit of, I think, 180 or something pounds a month. Well, there's obviously a contradiction there, and this is all about priorities and spending, but individuals have to make choices, and that does include where they work and where they live and whether that's affordable. Of course, there's not the job security these days for people to potentially move for a job every time they change work, but no, I don't think it's pie in the sky to say that public transport could be free. But you do have challenges. You have geographical challenges in Scotland. You can't connect every place to the railway. You can't put on a bus service if it's just not going to be economical. So there are huge challenges. We are not a small country, and our population is dispersed, and that's why it's difficult. So when you bring in a pilot like this, it has to be focused, it has to have clear aims, and unfortunately, if it doesn't meet those aims, then it can't be deemed affordable in the current climate. That doesn't mean the Scottish Government aren't ambitious and won't be looking at other ways to lure people out of the cars, including advertising to people who they maybe aren't reaching. And again, you've got a sort of generational thing. If somebody isn't in the habit of following the news, of following politics, how do they know about these things? Do you need billboards when people are driving up and down the M8 or wherever it is, telling them, try the train?
Well, we talk about social media. I guess if your social media feed was flooded with it'll cost you a tenner to go anywhere in Scotland, you'd soon pretty well know about it. I don't know.
True, and these will be factors, but of course advertising costs money as well, so that is just potentially more public money trying to encourage behavioural change. There are complex reasons. Again, we need to encourage things like car sharing as well, which of course does divide that cost up, and car hiring, car clubs and things like that. There are a lot of different factors, and there are people who care about the environment, but not to the point of spending hundreds of pounds a month in a cost of living crisis, unfortunately.
Well, particularly if they just don't have those funds available to them. It's not a choice for a lot of people to spend an extra £180 a month. It's just a fact of life that they've either got it in their bank account or they don't. Sarah Capaldi's with us. Good morning, Sarah.
Hi there, good morning.
Good morning. You're kind of coming at this as a business owner, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So what are your thoughts on this decision?
To be honest, I think we're really trying to help the city centres. A lot of businesses struggling there, especially with people working from home. LES is now brought into place, which might put people going with cars going into the city centre. They might prefer to go to kind of Silverburn or things like that. I don't think it's that great an idea. I think our transport isn't that great, our public transport. I don't think it's well connected. If you have a second job, you're in a restaurant or something in the evening, you don't really have a choice but to take a car. Mm-hmm. Because after 9, half 9, 10, you're not going to get home safely if you're going to get home at all. So it's not really I don't think caring about the environment really comes into it because we just don't have the option. Yeah. I start work at between 5 and 6, so I have to bring a car. I have 40 minutes to get across the city to get to school when I finish. So there's no public transport that's going to get me there in time. And the cost of it. I heard the gentleman speaking before, an extra £180 a month. Again, it's not, do I care about the environment? It's, do I have the physical amount of money?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about choice, do you choose to take the car or do you choose to take the train or the bus? But what you've just outlined, Sarah, I mean, loads of people across the country will have their own version of that. And it's not so much a choice, it's just it's the only sensible option. Is for you to jump in your car because the other options just aren't viable, which is a different way of framing it. That's what we're certainly getting loud and clear from a lot of the texts this morning. Though we did have one caller there who was very much appreciative of his train journey. Sarah, thank you. Thanks to Shona Craven from the National. Apologies to Donald, we're out of time. You can hear the music. A lot of people don't use the train to commute to work, take their cars because of the limited space at railway stations. Polmont car park can be full by 7:30. So commuters have to use their cars. So ScotRail lose out on this revenue. There's lots of elements to this. That's from Lionel. Sofa sounds just up my alley. And what's your thoughts on this humdrum conundrum?
Was I wrong for not telling my fiancé I went on a date with his brother before we dated?
Yes, Karen McKenzie will have her thoughts on that as ever. But we want to know what you think. You, the jury, are. Always give us the verdict. You can text us on 80295.
This ain't Texas.
The only two things in life that make it worth living is guitars that tune good and firm feeling women. Now, I don't need my name in the marquee lights. I got my song and I got you with me tonight. Maybe it's time we got back to the basics of love. Let's go to Lukenbach, Texas, with Waylon and Willie and the boys.
Beyonce is launching a whiskey, would you believe? Joining the likes of The Rock, Kylie Minogue and Snoop Dogg. They've all released their own alcohol brands. Are these celebrity drinks ever any good?
Now it's time for another great song. Here it comes.
Your telephone on BBC Radio Scotland.
On rail travel, Kathy from Lochaber is saying £104 return Cardiff-Lacalsh to Edinburgh, outrageously expensive. Christine in Spey Bay saying I travel to Edinburgh from Aviemore monthly for work. 2 weeks ago there were already people standing and sitting on cases when I got on the 11:30 train. No ventilation, no air conditioning, no reservations available, no trolley service. This for over 3 hours. It's a regular thing. Managed to get COVID as a wee added bonus. It wasn't worth anything. The only good service on this line is the LNER one, so it's just unacceptable in every way. You can keep your texts coming in on that, your experience of the rail service in Scotland, public transport. I'm sure there will be good experiences out there too. Get them in, 80295. And I want to know, what age were you when you first went off with your pals on holiday? You were released from the family home. We've had a few stories from our office. Rory went to Germany when he was 15. He got a tattoo. Susan went from Paisley to London with a little tied-up hanky on the end of a pole when she was 17. What about you? When did you get your first real taste of independence? Where did you go? What did you do? Get in touch and tell us. 80295. Bill Bailey coming up after Dexy's Midnight Runners.
I realize you care. so happy you brought me back around. Now in September, I shed a tear. I'm glad to know you've been here through the year, and I thank you for being so strong and stern, always giving all your love and ever asking in return. Without your love, I surely would fall. If you need me, you just call. I'll be right there. Oh yeah. Baby, if you call on me, I'll be right there. Yes, I will. Yeah. Yes, I will. Yeah. And I thank you for being so strong and stern, always giving all your love and never asking in return. Without your love, I surely would fall. If you need me, you just call. I'll be on point. Baby, if you call on me, I'll be on point. Yes, I will. No matter the time of day, day or night. Winter, spring, summer, no matter the season, I'll be here, staying, waiting for you, baby. You and only you, baby. Hey, I'm not going nowhere, baby.
It is 11 minutes past 10. This is Kay Adams with you till 12 on BBC Radio Scotland, looking for your first taste of freedom, independence, your first little trip with your pals. When was it? What age were you? And what did you get up to, if indeed you are able to share? 80295. Now, lots of us looking forward to snuggling down on the sofa of an evening, watch the telly, read maybe catch up on social media. But comedian Bill Bailey wants you to consider another option, a workout on your sofa. Not what you're thinking. Bill has joined forces for a second year with the We Are Undefeatable campaign, encouraging people with long-term health conditions to move more at home. And he joins us now. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Kate.
Good morning. What age were you released into the wild, Bill, all on your own-io?
I was thinking about this. I was probably either 16, 17, and a bunch of us went on a road trip to France.
Wow.
And we all went barreling down through France, which I got to say was a great experience. And we all ended up, I think that we had a mission because one of our party had an Italian girlfriend. And so there was some vague notion of, well, we're going to go and stay with her and which was exactly what we did. We drove all the way down through France to northern Italy. It was an amazing adventure. And I still think of it very fondly.
Yeah, it is a fantastic sort of memory, isn't it? That first experience when you are on your own and you have to kind of deal with all the things that kind of come up. Yeah, it's nice and nice that you remember it now. But listen, let's bring ourselves back to this campaign. But in terms of movement, it's something that you are very passionate about generally and in your own life. I mean, I believe you've just been up at Caithrath, is that right? Mid-July?
Caithrath, that's right. Yeah, it's something I wanted to do for a long time. And I just in May, late May and early June, just gone, with a bunch of friends, we walked the Cape Wrath Trail, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's from Fort William to Cape Wrath, which is, I think, the most northwesterly bit of British Isles. And it's 250 miles. And it goes through some of the most stunning countryside you can imagine, some of the most remotest, but also monumentally staggeringly beautiful parts of Britain, and some of Scotland is just at its finest. You know, these remote glens and beautiful still lochs. We saw amazing amounts of wildlife, deer and golden eagle, white-tailed eagle, merlins. I mean, it was just amazing. It's tough. I mean, it's a hard walk.
What's the terrain like, Bill?
The terrain, well, it's a mixture. I mean, the Cape Wrath Trail is really a kind of patchwork of lots of other little paths and trails. So some of them are forest trails, some of them are, you know, gravel tracks, some of them are single tracks, some of them are little roads, sometimes there's no track at all. Sometimes it's just bog, you know, and you know, which is lovely. I mean, it's beautiful, gorgeous, you know, great big swathes of cotton grass and, you know, Ben More ascent rising up out of the mist. But for those parts of the trail, you need a map and you need to be quite good with your navigation. So we did actually have to take a bearing with a compass and a proper actual physical map because
Oh, really?
parts of where we're going, you know, where we went, there's no signal, so you can't really rely on a signal or a phone or a GPS. So it's a good challenge, actually, a physical challenge, very tough. I mean, you know, 20-mile days at least every day with a full pack, with all your, you know, we took all our tent and cooking gear and sleeping gear. So, but we had some wonderful nights and a few bothies here and there.
Nice.
And it was an amazing experience.
It seems to be a habitat that you're really comfortable in. You know, you enjoy the natural world, don't you? I mean, you've got a book out in October, haven't you, about my animals and other animals. It's a space that you feel good in, yeah?
Definitely, yes. I mean, it's you know, the outdoors is, as you say, my natural habitat, and I'm a real sort of, as you say, I mean, I'm a keen advocate of it. I think that, you know, it's great to get out and get moving, and I think walking particularly is one of my favourites. It's something which is, I think, underestimated, undervalued as an exercise. It just people we're walking when that's easy, isn't it? But you know, distance walking, planning a walk with friends and family, it's a lovely experience anyway. But it does get you out, and it's, you know, it can be an exercise which you can do with a minimum amount of kit and training. You know, not very specialised. Yeah. And it's just you know, I think it's well, we used to say good for the soul, but of course these days you'd say it's something else. You'd say it was mindful or good for your mental health. But, you know, I think that's all of those things are true.
Yeah, maybe one of the few upsides of the COVID years. I suppose a lot of us discovered the value when we were feeling a bit down of just going out and trudging those streets. It definitely did lift the gloom. I mean, of course, all of this is great if you enjoy good health, and you obviously do, Bill, if you're doing 250 miles across the top of Scotland. For people who don't enjoy good health and with long-term health conditions, exercise can sometimes be quite daunting, and I mean that's really key to this campaign that you're involved with, to try and sort of encourage people and give them confidence if they're in that situation still to kind of move. Yeah,
absolutely, and you're right, it can be daunting, particularly, as you say, if you're living with a long-term health condition, which apparently, according to research, about 16 million people in Britain currently do live with a long-term health condition. So it's a large number of people. You know, it's well, I suppose, you know, a huge percentage of the population, and it can be quite a challenge and quite daunting. And the idea of moving and fitness generally is sometimes, it seems a bit overwhelming. And I think that you know, a lot of the research was saying that a lot of those the people who are living with conditions like that tend to feel a bit, you know, they feel, well, my condition sometimes is a bit unpredictable. I don't know if this might, you know, exercise might make it worse. Something might flare up. There's so many other elements to think about. And what I love about this campaign, and why this is the second year I've been involved in it, is that it recognises that, it kind of acknowledges those concerns, and these routines that you can see on the website are very much geared to those people who are perhaps feeling that pressure or those challenges. And it's very simple. They're simple exercises you can do actually from your sofa. But that's you know, the name of this campaign.
Was it sit on fitness apparatus? Very good.
Exactly. It's good. So you know, they're very simple, straightforward exercises. But again, every single time you do a bit of movement, a bit of physical activity, that's good. That can make the difference to the day. And if you build that into your daily routine, it all adds up.
And well, yeah, there's the two things. I mean, the anxiety that people can feel. I mean, it's all very well to say, "Oh, go out and have a walk," even go around the park.
Yeah.
But if you feel that you're not confident of your health, and what if I get breathless? What if I need to sit down? What if I can't, etc. You fully understand why people might be anxious about that. So it's great that they can do things within the home. But then it's also sort of convincing them that it is worth it. That it does make a difference. Even a relatively small amount of movement will improve your well-being and your physical health.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, really, that's the mantra that I live by anyway. And that is that, I try to do something every day. I think the key is, particularly as we get a bit older, you just keep moving every day in any small way, whether it's walking, or if you're able to get on a bike, or even, if you're able to get to the local pool, a bit of swimming. But if even just a bit of movement that this campaign highlights around the house, things to get the body moving, stretching, strengthening your muscles, all of those things are so important, because it's a sustainable routine. It's something which is not extreme, doesn't put huge demands on you, but cumulatively, if you manage to make this part of your daily routine, it will make a difference. And I think also you get a bit of a positive buzz from it as well. You get a sense of achievement that it's so you're getting a kind of sense of movement, a sense of improvement as well.
Well, yeah, and the way the videos have been designed, they're great fun as well. There's real humour in it, which is I think always helps in most situations, doesn't it? Well, Bill, listen, thank you very much indeed. We Are Undefeatable is the name of the campaign. If you want to search for that to find these videos, you'll find a range of them, so there should be something for everyone. It's supported by 15 of the UK's social care charities, so the value of exercise very much acknowledged by all of these kind of groups, and this is an easy way into it from your sofa. I love that. Sit on fitness apparatus. I'm going to be using that myself. Bill, thank you very much. We'll let you get back to your walking. I don't know if you've done your exercise yet today or not, have you?
No, not yet. I'm just about to go for a stroll.
Lovely. All right. Enjoy. Thanks, Bill.
Since we've started on this show, we've become a big success. We've won awards on top the polls. You've said that we're the best. We don't want to argue because you lot pay our wages, so we'll agree and say that we're the best show on in ages. The Chris Moyle Show, the best show on in ages.
10:22, Kay Adams with you till 12. We've been asking you this morning, when did you get your first taste of independence? When were you allowed to go off on holiday, a weekend or whatever with your pals? This is on the back of Kirsty Allsop. Her son has gone off interrailing around Europe at the age of 15, I think, with a 16-year-old pal for 3 weeks, which some people, everyone's got an opinion, haven't they? Think perhaps is too young, but I don't know. If I go back to my young days, that was pretty standard. Pamela in Edinburgh says I was allowed to go to Jersey when I was 16. Funnily enough, that was my first trip as well. But only because my friends were 17 and they were lifelong friends that my parents knew very well. Had to phone home every day, reverse the charges, to let my parents know that I was okay. I think the craziest thing we actually did was set fire to the bacon that was frying outside of our tent. June, me and my pal went hosteling in Scotland when we just turned 16. Had a great time. Ran out of money. Had to hitchhike, booked some very remote hostels, but we had a ball. We managed and we looked out for each other. Great learning, fun, and meeting international travellers. Happy memories. I mean, arguably a really essential part of your growing up experience, I would say. That first taste of freedom. When was yours? What did you do? What did you get up to? 80295 is the text number. We've got another humdrum conundrum for you today.
Was I wrong for not telling my fiancé I went on a date with his brother before we dated?
Yes, that is the question that our judgmental friend Karen McKenzie will be addressing. She'll be sharing her thoughts, but we want to hear yours. You can text us on 80295, and he's back.
It is a penalty. They're penalising you for leaving the contract early, and I would see them banned if I could get away with it.
That's our consumer rights expert, Martin James, getting his teeth into yet another problem. That's what he loves. That's what he's good at. So if you've got any issues with something that you've paid good money for, whether it's online, it's a product, a service, whatever, get in touch with Martin. 08085 92 95 00. You can text 80295.
Got
Your mornings just got better.
This year on BBC Radio Scotland.
It is limbering up in the background, ready for today's humdrum conundrum. Was I wrong not to tell my fiancé that I'd actually gone out with a date with his brother before we got together? 80295, tell us what you think. Here's Nella Furtado.
You're beautiful, that's for sure. You'll never, ever fade. You're lovely, but it's not for sure. I won't ever change. And though my love is great, and though my love is true, brings me to tears, even after all these years, and it pains me so much to tell that you don't know me that way, and though my love is great, and though my love is true,
I know how you feel, Nellie. I want to fly away as well, but unfortunately that option is not available to me at that point. Because she's back.
Back y'all. Welcome back. And that's a fact, y'all.
Time
y'all.
for another hum-da-rum conundrum with our judgmental friend Karen McKenzie.
You love it.
I haven't seen you for a while, actually, so you know I'm okay. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. I've had a requisite break.
You need a fix.
Yes, I need my Karen McKenzie fix. Said nobody in the world ever.
I know.
Those words have just been expressed for the first time there, everyone. This has been a historic moment. This has almost been an Obama moment. You know, forget what's happening at the DNC. I just issued, a really profound and completely false statement. Anyway, here we are. It's lovely to see you, Karen. Lovely in inverted commas. We're in showbiz world.
You notice I didn't return the compliment.
No. It's funny, I was listening, I'm going off on a track here. We've got Gail Telfer-Stevens with us as well. Morning, Gail.
Good morning, girls.
Actually, I'm going to go off on two tangents. I'm going to have to write it down so that I can remember them.
Don't
so
forget,
that one's
right.
written down. But I'm going back to another one. Do you know, Karen, what she's been up to this morning? Gail
Who?
Telfer?
Gail? No. You've been at the gym?
No.
Worse.
Oh, you're always at the gym.
Worse.
Go on.
You ran in?
No, I didn't. I don't
All right,
run.
I'm out of ideas now.
I came in to tell Kay that I had been in the tub this morning. Now, I go in the cold tub every morning, but my point to Kay was that it was different level today because the temperature had dropped so much to about 10 that the water was freezing, so the skin was stinging right off me, but it was elite and amazing, and I would recommend it to anyone that's warm when they get up and they just want a wee bit of a boost or a good start to their day. Get in a cold water tub.
We're not into that, are we?
Silence.
No.
Kay looked at me with disgust.
I can't think of a worse way to start the day.
I promise you'll swear by it. I'm going to get you in that tub, Kay. That's another section of the show.
And then how long are you in it for? Like half a second?
No, 3 minutes.
Well, I tell you what, I might swear by it, but not in the way you think.
No.
I would turn the air as blue as my skin. And then the other tangent that I was going to go on is, Karen, you are one of the rare people that I know in my life, and this was something I was listening to the other day, some American thing, and this woman said, no is a complete sentence.
Oh, I heard that.
Which I think is really interesting because generally we go, no, I can't because I've got to take my granny. Whereas Karen will just go, nope.
I love that about her though. That's what I love about her.
It's not happening. No.
Because sometimes I ask her something, she just says no, and I'm waiting for it. Well, come on, then give us a bit of detail here. Let's have a bit of an excuse. But it's just no. Anyway, why she is perfectly suited for this role, I think we can say, Gail. Are we ready for this week's conundrum?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And I have been together for 5 years. We got engaged a year ago and have been planning the wedding with much excitement. Recently, I mentioned to him that before we got together, I'd gone on a Tinder date with his older brother. I sort of thought I had already told him when we first got together, but it was clear from his reaction that I definitely hadn't. He said that is not something I should have just mentioned so flippantly. I should have made sure that he knew before we ever progressed in our relationship. I was shocked. I couldn't believe he was being so dramatic about it. The date was a non-event, nothing had happened, and we parted ways without a word to each other until we saw each other at my now fiancé's family events. Was I wrong for not telling my fiancé I went on a date with his brother before we dated?
As I often say at the end of some of these conundrums, ditch 'em.
Aye, he is being over dramatic. I mean, he's making a big story out of nothing.
Controlling.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This was one date where nothing happened. They probably didn't even have a kiss. Yeah, why would you even bother going there? And also, do you know what? I don't know if they live in the city or not, but how would you even know that they were related until you came to, say, the first family event, and then you probably can't even remember it was the brother because it was just one fleeting, tiny little afternoon or drink or coffee or whatever.
Says a woman who's clearly had quite a few suitors, Gail, doesn't it? So
They've only
many
ever
she
just
can't
lasted a
even
date. Not from my
remember.
choice.
There must have been some showing of pictures of his brother. Come on, Karen. Like, she must have known that was his brother.
How would you know? You don't. I've never been on Tinder, I have to say. But do you start showing your family pictures?
Well, after you've been in a relationship with someone, yeah, you think, okay, this is my brother and this is before you meet
No, we
them.
don't. I
yes,
don't.
you do.
No, I don't.
And anyway, how do you know that nothing happened?
Well, because that was. Did you not listen?
No, because I think she's lying as well. I think
so
this
you
whole situation is awkward. I would be absolutely
Right, so you don't trust the woman because you don't trust yourself. So you're putting that on to other people.
I'm deflecting.
Yeah.
Well, she's been practicing while she's been away, hasn't
she?
Hang on.
She's been to a
I've
life
lost
coach,
my way
I think.
again.
Yes.
No, I think there was absolutely nothing to tell. It was a one-off. There's why make a big thing about it. And God, maybe the reason that she didn't, although I think she believed that she had told him, but I don't know whether that's true or not.
It was inconsequential to her.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I think
why does it matter, Gail?
It matters because it's embarrassing. That's why.
They should be having a laugh about it. Even
Well,
if when it came
maybe.
out, it should have been a big joke. I was like, oh, did you kiss him? What kind of a snogger was he? That kind of thing. It should have been a big laugh instead of him going down the flaming house.
That's a bit creepy, can I just say?
Oh, is it? All right.
Yeah.
Was it?
Do you know that in the days of the Locarno, if you remember this, I'll tell this story really quickly. My dad went out with my auntie before he went out with my mum. My auntie went on a holiday to Jersey, right? And my mum used to say, oh, see him, like, why are you going out with him? He's ugly, he's this, he's that. And my mum went to the Locarno and met my dad when my aunt was in Jersey and thought, okay, Billy will buy you some drinks. He bought them some drinks,
And the
her and our
rest is
pals,
history.
and the rest is history.
What did your auntie say?
Your mum was a man stealer.
I don't think she was that happy because my dad's a bit of a catch. He's a really good man.
Right.
And they've been together 50 odd years, married 50 odd years.
She stole her sister's boyfriend,
wouldn't it?
And I think so because what my Auntie Anne ended up with was like kind of all right guy.
Second. On the rebound.
Sloppy seconds.
Are they still together?
Yeah.
And very happy, I'm sure, Gail.
Yeah. But anyways, I think this whole situation is awkward. She should have been upfront and honest about it, Karen.
But what's
to tell?
about the brother?
You two are ganging up on me. Stop it right now.
You never open your mouth. I'm surprised at you, actually. Yeah. You normally wait till the guest is gone and then it all comes out.
Oh, is that right?
Aye.
But if anyone was going to tell in this situation, I would have thought it would be the brother because he is going to have the same kind of knowledge at the same level. Either, he brings the girl home and he says, oh, God, you never know. I went out with her a few years ago. That's the thing. But that's what siblings would share with each other rather than putting it on. Why'd you put it on the girl?
I wondered who decided there wasn't going to be a second date. That's maybe inconsequential as well.
Water under the bridge, forget about it. The new man is a drama queen. He's controlling. Get rid of him.
I thought actually
it's a near miss.
I'm stumped for words. I'm just a bit empty here.
Well, tell me when you first got your taste of freedom then. What was your first holiday away with your pals without your mammy and your daddy? We're talking about this in something. Did you listen to the programme at all?
I heard a wee bit. No, I heard a wee bit. Because I heard somebody saying they went to Italy.
What age were you when you were let out on your own? It might be 32
school.
people.
Not through school. Probably my honeymoon.
Wow.
He was actually.
No. Away.
There weren't really flights in that year. In my day.
It to be flights. Could have been a trip.
Oh, right.
To Scarborough.
Can't remember.
Blackpool.
Actually.
You don't look like a Blackpool type.
This. No, I went cycled to Blackpool from Manchester. No, only from Manchester. I got out as soon as I could.
Karen's first taste of freedom was her honeymoon.
Needless to say, the wedding didn't last.
Can I say that my first taste of freedom was in Kavos in Greece?
Age?
Is that right?
18.
Did you go off with a waiter?
No, I didn't go off with anyone. I was actually going out with my now partner.
Who she pinched off her sister. Runs in the family. No, the reason we're asking is because Kirsty Allsop's son is 15 and he's off interrailing in Europe for 3 weeks with his 16-year-old pal.
That's young.
In the great tradition of social media, some people are exercised by this.
Is that legal?
Yeah, why not?
I don't know, is it?
Young, isn't it?
I went when I was 15.
Did you?
Yeah, my mum and dad bought me a one-way ticket. Chrissy from near Kyle of Lacouche says, travelling freedom was when I was 16. I used to go through to Glasgow every week from the Angus Glens to stay with my boyfriend at the halls of Jordan Hill College. I'd go through on the bus as a child's fare, and then I'd go to the pub for a pint in Glasgow. I was more mature then than I am in my 40s. We'd go and get the last minute